Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Proops.
This is Jordan Harbinger.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan East.
This is Sebastian Younger.
This is Rick Marotta.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
Hey, this is Skunk Baxter.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
Hi, this is Greg Nibler, host of Funemployment Radio and Digital Trends Live, and you're listening to The Break It Down Show.
And now, The Break It Down Show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
I was just going to say, it's funny because today is podcast day, which I just realized a few minutes ago because I was too fucking busy putting out podcasts all day.
Exactly. I totally forgot about that too.
That's the mark of a true podcaster when you're like,
exactly.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Whatever.
I'll put something up tomorrow and we'll be podcaster day +1. I've been in it for a long time, 5+ years doing the Break It Down show and other things in like small radio. But you've been podcasting for 10+ years. Holy shit, man. Multiple shows. Yeah. You're one of the first out there. When you look back 10 years ago and you're like, yeah, let's try this thing. I want to get a little bit into this. But when you're like, if you were to tell that guy, like, this is what's coming, this is what the marketplace is going to be, hundreds of thousands of podcasts, would that surprise you?
There's that many, yes. I did know it was going to be a thing. I mean, you could tell just being in radio, because that's where I came from, was commercial radio.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where if you're in radio, you get laid off. That's how that works.
Right. Yeah.
So it was one of those things where it's like, well, all right, we got laid off again. We can go find another market, go get back into it, and you can do that. But we've been testing around with podcasts already. I was like, let's just try a podcast. Let's try it on our own. And so my coworker at the time, Sarah, we had never actually done much just together. We were part of a bigger show. I'm like, you know what? Let's try it. Let's go do it. And starting off, you could tell that instant reaction that we got and that instant connection. I was like, this is something. This is going to matter. And this medium is just going to change so much. I did not know it was going to get this big. That I could definitely say. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I remember thinking back about podcasts too, and I had some indicators. Like one, this is the radio industry. It was really hard to find something that really moved me on radio. It was just space filler. And then, I would get used to someone. They're doing drive time, and Johnny Two Balls is my guy,
right.
And he's always there. And then all of a sudden one day, gone. No word, no recognition. Like, hey, fuck you. This guy, like, you forced me to listen to this guy. I start to like him, and then poof, he's gone.
And that's how it works. Once they, at least back when I was in it, and I'm assuming it's still the same today, I pretty much know that, is that once you're let go, they wipe you from the website, your key card stops working, and then they never address it to the audience. It's just, nope, that person never existed. I don't know what you're talking about. Now it's, Johnny Three Balls, who's now the host, however they decide to change
next guy, yes.
Next guy down the list, or whoever they bring in from some outside market, who then mispronounce everything locally. And,
right.
That's how it used to be. But now, I mean, that market's just shrinking so much as far as.
Well, I mean, that was part of the thing is like, oh, we're not actually friends here. You guys actually don't care about me. You just have me trapped in my car. And I'm just not going to push this stupid button. But so, when podcasts started to come out, I was like, wait a second. People are going to leave radio to do this because regardless of the money side of it, you have some control over your career. Like, oh, you're saying I don't have an audience? I got people calling me on the damn phone every day. What do you mean I don't have an audience? And by the way, if you let me curate more of their experience, they're going to find my style and they're going to like it. Hey, this is Pete A. Turner from the Break It Down Show, checking in real quick to ask you this. John, Scott, and I all support Save the Brave with our time, our location, our effort, and our money. Each month we give a small amount. Do the same with us. Go to savethebrave.org, click on the Donate tab, pick an amount that you want to come out each month, and they will handle all the rest. I stand behind these folks. Thank you so much. Let's get back to the show. And by the way, if you let me curate more of their experience, they're going to find my style and they're going to like it.
Yeah, it's an interesting mix of how those have come. And now radio's coming back around to where they're actually investing in their own podcasts. So it's kind of an interesting market switch, how it's all happened. But yeah, podcasts definitely a future.
Yeah, and I guess I want, and I don't want to beat up on radio all day long because I really
I don't either. But yeah.
But they put out podcasts and like, how is this a podcast? Like, it's not in any way different than what you're already doing. And thanks for all the fucking ads. Actually, I love it. They should keep doing that. because I'm just going to outmaneuver them.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of educational catch up that needs to happen in there.
Yeah. Okay, so enough about that. When you guys did first get so wait, you're an Oregon State guy, you're a Beavs guy. Were you in mass comm back in the olden times?
No, I was marketing major with speech communication as a minor. So communication was in there, but not really a goal on this field. This field kind of came later on when I discovered that I wanted to do this kind of stuff.
But you're not afraid of it at all, or have you built up that? I mean, obviously you're comfortable. You've done 3,000 shows, something like that.
Yeah, I think Funemployment Radio, we're at 2,300. Digital Trends Live, I don't know how many of that, 200 or 300 at this point. It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. I've done it a lot, so I'm pretty comfortable with it at this point. But it started off just from being in bands. That's how I got started. I was a musician. And so I was a little bit shy in front of the microphone. Yeah. And so I started playing bass, and then I was like, well, I want to try singing, and got into that. And then from there, that was kind of the springboard. Yes. Happenstance-wise into getting into broadcasting. These are the gems that I do. One of the ways I monetize is by creating capacity, trading time for money in podcasting. And when people say things to me like, "Oh, I can't stand the sound of my voice," I have to look at them and say, well, then why can anybody else? Like, if you can't get over it, right? That's a hurdle way before building an audience, and certainly way before monetizing. Do you remember what it's like to be a neophyte podcaster with like a dream and a whole bunch of ideas? Yeah, 100%. I mean, the first time that I started it was actually for a show called The Nibler Show. That's when I first started getting into radio. It was radio and podcasting because they were actually doing it a long time ago. So it was kind of an interesting mix there. But yeah, I went from being in a band, the band was ending. We played on a local radio station. Actually, it was a college/community radio station, KPSU, here out of Portland. And one of the DJs was a fan. We went and played on their show, and then we were ending, and he was like, you'd be really good on radio. You should give this a shot. Like, it's just a class. It's free. You don't have to be a student. Like, it's community members, all that stuff. And I was like, well, yeah, fuck it. All right, I'll give it a shot. My band's ending, so I might as well do something. I still have this creative drive. And so I did that, got into it, and man, it was so much fun. And I also had no idea what I was doing. Yes. I love it. I want to get into some of this stuff because these are the lessons that I try to impart on folks. And I'm straightforward. It's not that I'm not nice. Like, do you want me to beat around the bush, or do you want me to tell you what the reality is, Yeah. And John and I, when we started our show here, we started out on community radio, and they basically were like, you guys need to go do bigger things. Get out of here. Stop hanging around here and go get bigger. And so we did. And that's why we got the podcast. And, look, you think you know what you're doing. And I'm talking not to you and I, but to the audience in general. You think you know what you're doing, and then you just keep doing it. And you look back and you're like, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. Mm-hmm. So many lessons to learn. I think I've codified hosting pretty well that I can pass it along to other folks. But it's something that you think you know how to fly the airplane until all of a sudden you realize all of the things that you have to account for. What have you learned along the way about hosting a show and doing all the things you have to do while you're recording? Oh, man. Repetition, consistency is very important. I would say that. If this is, depending on what kind of aspect we're looking at here, if we're talking to people who are wanting to get into that, repetition. The more you do it, the better you get at it. And the more you learn where your pitfalls are, where your mistakes are going to come from. Okay. That's certainly something that for me, with this many episodes under my belt, I've learned a lot about that, but still learning all the time too. Never question that there's more to learn, but yeah, you can get to a point where you feel pretty confident about what you're doing. So you've exited out of I think we can do this. It's a dream. I got a zillion ideas to actually, look, you still have too many shows, right? You like a lot to do, but talk about the transition from, I think we can do this to, holy shit, we really are doing this. I can make a living doing this. Yeah. For us, going from that radio side where you did have a steady paycheck, you had a whole team of people, engineers and a sales staff and all that. And you kind of forget about that when you're in it. 'Cause you're like, oh man, that I just go out there and I do the radio and, that's what this is all about. But there's a lot that needs to happen to make that work. Yes. And that was one of the first lessons, I think. Not that we didn't know that was going to be coming, but I didn't realize how much education there was going to be about, how is my internet connection? Is it strong enough? Do I have the right cords? Do I have the cables? Do I have, all of this? Do I have a sales structure set up? Do I have a sales package set up on how I'm going to sell this show? So that was a whole lot of education. But once we got to this point, I would say like within the first week when we launched, and we had way more downloads than we thought, because we did pretty much zero advertising other than we posted one thing on Facebook. And I was like, wow, this is really taking off. And, and then we ended up, back then, there weren't as many podcasts. We were ranked, I think, number 3 in comedy on iTunes at the time when we started. This is before hundreds and hundreds of thousands of them were out there. So, less competition, still though, some competition. So it's still good. And, we saw that and that ranking stay up there. And we're like, you know what, this is where we need to go. And that's when you double down on it and you start feeling that you're actually doing something. You start hearing from people writing in. I think it was, within that first month or two, and then we got the business license for it and got all that settled in, where it's like, okay, this is the ride. We're gonna see where this goes. We're gonna give this a shot. And yeah, I would say it was, right around there, somewhere around there of getting the business license and seeing all the downloads and seeing the iTunes ranking, that we're like, this is it. We're not going back to radio. We're sticking with this.
Yeah. So you've proven to everybody that you're fucking crazy. And
yeah, 100%. Yeah.
One of the things I love about podcasts, YouTube in general, but you can do things like there's things you learn along the way from your family. Like currently, if you go on the manual, like I was looking today when I was doing some more prep, how to slice a ham. And you learn that from your mom or from your dad, and that's the way you do it. Doesn't mean it's the best way. It's just, but now you can like literally learn the best way. Like I've tried all the ways. These things are incredible. Is this part of what fascinates you about what you get to do and looking at all of these different things and really aggregating what the best advice is on certain things?
I'm in a fortunate position because there's Funemployment Radio that I do. There's digital Trends. Their brother company is The Manual. And so The Manual podcast, formerly Beards, Booze, and Bacon, that was what we started with. We just changed it at the 100th episode to The Manual podcast now. With that show, it is fascinating to me because each week I learn something new. I'm not well-versed in a lot of what we talk about before the show, before we do them, before I do a little bit of research beforehand. It'll be topics that I don't know a lot. Sam and Nicole will know a lot. They're my other co-hosts. And that's why it's fun for me, because I get to learn not just from them, but doing my own research, but then our amazing guests that we get to have on there. That's awesome. Like I learned about wine, more stuff about wine recently, aquavit, which I had no idea about aquavit. And now I know some about aquavit. And then of course, after I do the show, I go tell all my friends, be like, oh, well, let me tell you about aquavit actually, because I just learned that day. It's fun though. It's a lot of fun. And themanual.com is a great source for that stuff.
Yeah, it's ridiculous the amount of people, my show, I guess you would say, is sort of Rogan-esque, where I go talk to the people that will answer the questions that I have about things. Whatever topic it is. So one day, I've got one of my buddies who's a spy on, and we're talking spy stuff, head to head.
Nice.
And then the next thing we're talking, quantum physics and quantum gravity, and I'm having my mind exploded. It just is, regardless of however much money you make, being able to have these conversations is worth the price of admission, at least in my work.
Yeah, I agree. And getting to share them too, because I feel like with that show, it's why at the end, I almost always say it's like, I always learn, or at the beginning, kind of mix it in, but I always learn something. I think you're going to learn something too. And hopefully it's fun, whatever it is that you're learning about, even if it's, a random episode about something that, okay, that was neat. I'm not going to use that past this, but that was interesting to learn. Like we had Takuma Sato on the show, who is a former IndyCar champion. He won the Indianapolis 500. He is an IndyCar champion right now, but he's one of the big racers in IndyCar racing. And I don't have a wide breadth of knowledge about IndyCar racing. I'm not a big fan of racing as far as there's nothing wrong with it. I'm just not that into it. But talking to him, it was just really interesting getting to know what that's like, what a day in the life of an IndyCar racer is like and what they go through. And I came away with a lot more respect for what he did. Not that I didn't have respect, but man, that's hard. That is hard what they do.
I gather so much wisdom from doing this show. And because we both do a lot of recording, those lessons just at some point, my wise Pete brain says, hey, dummy, when are you going to learn this? Like whatever it is, IndyCar racing, growing grapes for a wine, none of it is what you think it is. And it's all way harder. At the peak of anybody's success, they've already outdeveloped, outworked, outlucked their way to where they're at. But all of those things come from just getting after it and just never stopping.
And that's 100%. Yeah. I mean, it's just really interesting. I found out, I mean, this is just a random, and we don't have to go here if you don't want to, but I'm just talking about some of the episodes for the Manual podcast. We talked to the owner of Jacobson Salt Company. I have no idea. I understand salt. Okay. Where you take some seawater and I don't know. I really didn't know the exact process on how it worked. And he walked us through how he decided to do it. And he had no idea about salt either. He just tried some once and he really liked it. These like gourmet salts. It's like, you know what? I'm going to go figure out how to do it on the Oregon coast. Nobody's ever done it before. I'm going to buy a piece of property and I'm just going to figure it out.
Wow.
And he figured it out. And now he's like one of the biggest salt companies in the U.S.
Yeah.
It was really just interesting knowing that, but all the struggles that he went through to get to that point. He had this one strange idea that he wants to make gourmet salt, but saw it all the way through. It's fascinating, kind of inspiring at the same time.
So I'm going to ask you the question that people always ask me, but I'm going to put a twist on it.
Okay.
Your favorite guest.
Hey, this is Pete A. Turner from Lions Rock Productions. We create podcasts around here. And if you, your brand, or your company want to figure out how to do a podcast, just talk to me. I'll give you the advice on the right gear, the best plan, and show you how to take a podcast that makes sense for you, that's sustainable, that's scalable, and fun. Hit me up at pete@breakitdownshow.com. Let me help. I want to hear about it.
So I'm going to ask you the question that people always ask me, but I'm going to put a twist on it.
Okay.
Your favorite guest. Not for a common reason. Give me like the deep cut favorite guest.
Man, that is tough. Let me think about this. I would say we've been fortunate. I've interviewed a lot of famous people and a lot of really interesting guests. Amy Schumer's been on multiple times and
Bobby
guests
Lee.
like Bobby Lee. Yeah, Bobby Lee's a friend of ours now at this point.
Right.
Kamau Bell, also a buddy at this point because we've had him on so many times, and then we end up hanging out with them afterward. And now we're very fortunate in that aspect that we've been able to do all that. I would say if skipping those who would be like obvious choices, a deep cut favorite guest might be Faison Love. And this is right off the top of my head that just stands out because he was giving me this inspirational messages and telling me like, stop it. Somehow we got on the topic of depression randomly. And that's normally not a topic of our show. And I don't even remember if it was on air or off air, to be honest, but I believe it was on air where he walked through this kind of life ideal that he had of, not letting shit get you down. And I was just like, damn, man, that's really inspiring. And I appreciate everything that you just said right there. And that I would say for a deep cut.
Yeah.
Faison Love would be one.
And then who can you just not get enough of? Since you get to have people come back all the time, who you're like, I can't wait to get so-and-so again.
Probably Sklar Brothers.
Okay.
And also buddies at this point where we've had them on so many times that we just get along with them well. And that's for Funemployment Radio. Sarah and I have known them almost since the beginning of the show. They were on pretty early on in Funemployment Radio history. And then from there, just every time they're through town, we have them on. We always have fun on air, and it really is like catching up with friends each time we see them. Then, we go sing karaoke and have beers or whatever. But it's they are some of my favorite episodes because also for me being a host, I can just shut off. We'll set it up. They'll just knock it down. The rest of it. Yeah, and we just get to enjoy the show is really what it is.
Sit back and laugh. Yeah,
sit back and laugh.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I've picked up along the way is my life has completely changed because of the podcast. And I talk about podcasting a lot, but my friends a lot, and I have a lot of friends, but a lot of my really close friends that I interact with on a day-to-day basis are because of the show. Like you said, guests that become, I was talking to a best-selling author today and we were cracking up about things and talking baseball. We did talk show business, but also, we just talked like friends because that's what we are.
Yeah, it's so much fun. I mean, and to that extent too, just our listeners, again, from each of these shows, and I know it's weird because I do, like you said earlier, a lot of shows. So sometimes I'm tired all the time, but it's so much fun. I can't help it.
Yeah.
So it's with Funemployment Radio, we've been doing it, for for almost 10 years. It's 10 years on November 5th, 2019. That's when the 10-year will be. And depending on when you're listening. But we've done this so long, like a lot of our listeners, they've become friends, not almost. Some of them have become really good friends. Some of them they feel like family, or some of them I may only know via their email address when they write in. But then if we have one of our listener events and I get to meet them, they'll be like, I'm so-and-so 542. I'm like, holy shit, like you're a celebrity to me because I see your messages all the time. Like, that's so awesome. That's been another really, really great, and I would say really, really rewarding thing from doing the show and building that kind of an audience, is that, it feels like a family. It feels like a family in a way.
Yeah. With all of the things that you do already, I imagine, and this is one of the times when I knew, like, I'm actually doing this, was when I was banging up the edge of what I could do, like my capacity. Like, I actually can't take on anything else. I have to find money to put some of this work off to add more onto my plate. What's not on your plate, but gosh, you really want to have it there that you just don't have room for yet?
Everything. Everything. More travel.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's what I want. I want to do some more travel. I want to get take some more on the road.
Yeah.
I would say that's what I want more of on my plate. 100%.
What limits you from that then? Like within the business, like what's like, but I just can't seem to, because there's, you doing what you do as a host is harder than like when I edit, I'm like, why the fuck am I editing? Like, I really should have someone else doing this. And I do now. I have my buddy Damien doing it. But what are some of the things that you're like, I've got to get this off my plate so I can go do the creative things and get into the marketplace and find money for it and everything?
Thinking specifically, I mean, there's everything I'm doing is getting me toward that path. I feel like right now, I need some convergence, maybe a little bit in some aspects, but I feel like I'm on my way there. It's just, honestly, one of the biggest hindrances to that is I really love each of these things that I do, but I can't necessarily take them all on the road at the same time.
Yeah.
So I need to maybe balance that a little bit more, but I mean, I'm very fortunate when it comes down to that. I love my stuff, but also that's what keeps me here at the same time, where I don't get to go on the road as much.
Yeah. Do you have like a safety blanket where like, I know I shouldn't do this one thing that's good for the show, but I really should have someone else to do it? Do you have a thing like that? It's sort of like your home base?
I'm trying to think of, I guess maybe in what context do you mean?
I really don't need to book all the guests that I book and run a six week backlog. Even though I do 5 shows a week, I really don't need to do that. But that's how I run home to mama and
yeah,
I have to feed that part of the machine so that I don't have to worry about it. Yet I always worry about it.
Let me think. Like to some extent, I would say getting involved in actually some of the sales side of things, I really enjoy.
Yeah.
Some of that aspect, I don't need. I probably shouldn't.
Right.
That doesn't mean that I'm good at it, but I enjoy getting into it. So it'd probably be better to have somebody else handle that side of thing. That would be more efficient and have a better grasp on everything. But sometimes I really enjoy that, some of the wheeling and dealing. And it can be fun. I don't need to do that though.
Right.
I rather, not that I need to, I probably shouldn't do it.
Right.
Yeah.
But those are the things though, when you run your own, small businesses, you have to have the hats. You have to be able to put them on. And some of them just fit great. Even though everybody's like, would you just take that hat off? Like, stop wearing that hat,
Yeah. That hat's not for you.
Yeah. Let's change gears a little bit and let's talk specifically about the different shows. Do you want to talk about the manual, or you just want to include that within Digital Trends?
Oh no, yeah. Let's talk about that too.
Okay. Well, let's just start with Digital Trends, and let's talk about what happens on Digital Trends and what you guys cover on there, so folks know what to do. And it's real easy to find Digital Trends. You can find them on YouTube. You can find them on the website. You can find them on YouTube. All this stuff at Greg Nibler. It's all linked in his profile. So if you guys are trying to keep up, Digital Trends.
Yep, Digital Trends. So it's a consumer technology review website. So it's very consumer facing, but we also cover a lot of different things. So for them, we have amazing editors who cover anything that you could possibly want in technology. My role in particular is I'm the live anchor for our live 90-minute video show that goes on every day. And we broadcast on every social media website, in Dailymotion, Apple News. I don't even know where all we're distributed. But like you said, it's pretty easy to find, so you can find it. And that's a 90-minute live video show. From that, we actually do a podcast out of one of the segments with Flipboard called Tech Briefs. So that's a segment, a once a week segment that gets put into a podcast. But the rest of it are videos that go up as like standalone videos afterward. But it's all recorded live, all broadcast live. And then for Digital Trends, I also host their podcast called Trends with Benefits. And so that's a show where we take like one aspect of technology and we just kind of we delve into it. So it'll be like, the future of robots or food technology or things like that. We just kind of give a little bit of history and context and we debate it. And that's a half hour. And that's kind of what I handle for Digital Trends. And then with that, their other company is themanual.com. And that's where I host the Manual podcast. And that's also once a week, the Manual podcast, Trends with Benefits once a week, the Manual podcast once a week. And it's for that, it's more food focused, men's lifestyle focused. That's generally what the online magazine is. And we cover a lot of different territory on there. It kind of gives us a lot of room to move within that. So we learn a lot, I would say, on that show. Yeah. And then I don't know. The more I keep talking, I'm like, Jesus, it takes me forever just to explain everything that I do, which I'm not saying that's a good thing. But Funemployment Radio is the other one that I do. And I need to figure out a way to make this more succinct. Funemployment Radio is a comedy-based podcast about myself and Sarah X. Dillon, another former radio veteran. And we talk about our lives. It's satirical. It's a completely different direction than any of the other shows. Each show is very different from the other one.
That's true.
And that's where we get to have comedians on, and we get to just kind of cut loose, and filters go out the window, and that's what that show's more about.
Yeah. So folks give me advice all the time because they want to help, and I appreciate the help. And a lot of time, it's sort of like having a podcast or like having a resume. And people are like, well, let me take a look. And they always have advice. And you're like, yeah, well, still didn't get a job. Thanks, though. One of the things is they're like, you have to define your niche. And I'm like, is it a notch? How about bigger? What's bigger than a notch? No limit. Like, it's just the Grand Canyon. Whatever I want to study, whatever I want to, I illustrate life. But I was like, no, it's got to be about something. Like, it is. It's about life. Mm-hmm. And so I get a lot of that.
Seinfeld was a show about nothing,
Yeah,
it worked.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But you and I both know, like, we want to explore these things. You have these different shows, not because you want to be in a niche, but because these are the things that interest you. And I bet you're going to say, yes, this is true. You have a sense for what interests you, and that that's what the audience also wants.
I would like to think I do. Yeah. And that, I think it's a lot of it is of the way you explore the topics and the way you go about it, and looking at it from walking through something from the beginning to the end. I don't know if this makes any sense or not, but it's kind of what goes through my head when we're saying like a manual podcast where we're digging into something, we're digging into aquavit. It's like, well, I want to know we need to get to what aquavit is, but what's the history of aquavit? Like, where does this come from? I'm just using this for an example.
Yeah.
That was an episode we did where I'm like, how do we do 30 minutes talking about aquavit? Turns out it's really fascinating. And I just didn't know, the origins of it's a Swedish thing, just Scandinavian in general, and how it was used and why it was important to all of them and what mattered. And then, we get to the different kinds, and I learned all about the different barrels it's made in. And I just found it really interesting, just kind of going down that track of learning about that. And that's just, 20, 25 minutes, I think, is what that episode was. But I learned a lot just in that.
Do you worry about being insufferable at parties where you're like, oh, yes, I actually know something about this?
I try not to bring that up too much because I'm always afraid I'm going to mess up the facts. Mostly I'll just be like, I did a show about that. You listen to the show. We talked to an expert. That guy will tell you about it. I try not to be that guy, but I'm sure my friends would probably have a different story on that.
You shut up about, I had this guy on my show.
Well, I had this guy. I'm sure they would be more than happy to make fun of me for that.
Do your friends and family listen to the show?
Some of them listen to some of the shows. Some of them listen to all the shows. Some of them listen to none of the shows. My parents listen to Digital Trends. They'll watch that. I don't want them listening to Funemployment Radio just for no reason. It's not like anything crazy, but I just feel weird about it.
Yeah.
Just because we go kind of off the rails on that one. But then, the rest of my friends, some of them, they're like, I hear enough of your voice. I don't need to listen to your shows. Or they're into certain ones that I do. So it just kind of depends.
Yeah, it's funny how that works with family. They may or may not support. You have great friends that like almost despite you won't listen to my show, and they're like, I don't want to hear that thing, just like, why wouldn't you support me? But then you find out you've got really good friends in, like in our case, Toronto and in Dallas and all these different places. You're like, how in the world, Greg, how in the world did I build an audience in Japan and Israel and and Poland, for crying out loud?
Yeah, that's the magic of podcasts, though, is that reach. One person shares it to one other person, and that's why this medium is just so amazing. Thanks to the internet, of how easy that can be spread around. Where one person listens to it, they share it with a friend, and all of a sudden, like you said, you've built a following in Poland or all these other random places. But that's kind of the fun aspect, is you never know where it's going to end up. You don't know who's going to be listening to it.
What did podcasting give you that you haven't had any idea that you even had access to? Like, what's now part of your life that only comes from the show and you never would have guessed it?
Ooh, that only comes from the show and I never would have guessed it. That's a hard question to answer, because it just kind of depends on what aspect you're looking at. I would say probably that access and connections to things that I never thought I would be involved in. Like with Funemployment Radio, some of our sponsors and some of the different connections we made in that way have been really cool, really interesting to learn about, brewers and distillers and that whole lifestyle. It's not that it's all about beer and liquor, but I mean, it's interesting. It's really interesting to learn about that kind of stuff. And I would say it's just the reach, the access to different people from different walks of life.
Yeah. Okay.
That would probably be the blanket one that normally I wouldn't see if I'm, hiding at home. I'm not going to get access to all of this stuff and access to these different people and points of view. That may not answer your question at all. That may be cliche, but that's what it is.
One of the things I say is that, we gather perspective, which gives me more perspective. We recorded 3 episodes today, and one of my earlier shows we had on a guy that has more of a political style show. And I don't shy away from politics because I know where I'm at. I'm grounded and I'm comfortable with it. But what I've also learned is to be even more tolerant of other people's beliefs in politics. Because it turns out, Greg, this is going to surprise you, most of us don't agree on everything.
Yeah. So, shocker. Big shocker.
But if we focused on where maybe we could commonly agree that we can get some work done here, we probably could find a lot of things that we could lean on. And I'm sort of wired that way in general, but the show has proven that to be true. Like, I just meet too many great people across all of the political world that I just can't dismiss people.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that is important, to listen to everybody. It's one thing that I would say on Funemployment Radio, we intentionally don't bring up politics on it. I mean, it's probably pretty easy to figure out which way we lean if you listen to it. But I mean, we don't go into it much because it's not the style of what we wanted with that. And because of that, though, we have people from all different walks of life, all different political beliefs that can all listen and have fun with the show or make fun of Sarah and I. And it doesn't matter what your political background is. You all have fun, poking fun at that ridiculousness that we can all relate to. And that's been a really, really cool part of it too. Just, seeing people from every side of the spectrum, or a lot of it anyway. And then, just seeing how that all works and getting to hear from people.
Yeah. Do you feel like you know more about people or less about people now, 10 years in?
That's who knows. To be honest, I don't know. I don't even know how to answer.
It's the best answer.
Yeah.
It's the best
I don't know.
answer.
I can tell you I try, but that's probably not good enough. So, I mean, I know there's always more to learn.
How often do you get recognized walking around Oregon?
It happens. It's not all the time, but a lot of times, if I start talking, people will recognize the voice or they'll see me. I'm not going to say it's a regular occurrence, but it's really nice when it does. It's pretty fun. It's a pretty nice thing.
Yeah. What's the best side benefit that you get? Like, I know for me, it's hard to pay to get into shows. A lot of times I get access for things, but what's out there for you?
I would say, that's a lot of it. I mean, it pays to do this and then meet the right people and know the right people to where, you get access to a lot of things, which
but you also
I know is very fortunate. I try not to bring it up to too much.
Yeah. But the thing is that we do bring value. Like the $40 I might have spent, I can definitely return that with exposure and those.
For sure.
Yeah. Do you want to create a new show, or where do you want these shows that you're working on now? Where do you want them to be in a couple of years?
Just bigger, always bigger, always more. Yeah, with Funemployment Radio, we're on a good path with that of where I want to go with it. With Digital Trends Live, with that live video component, we're really making some strides in that, and really creating a pretty big presence for ourselves in that space.
Yeah,
what it is, and I want to naturally get bigger, get more. And same thing with the manual podcast. That one's growing too. So I'm in a fortunate state right now where everything's growing. So I think it's just kind of keeping myself from going into a little too crazy working on all of them. But I love the forward momentum. Right. I mean, I'll sleep when I'm dead, that kind of mentality. Who cares? It's too much fun. It's too much fun. You got to keep doing it.
Too much fun.
Yeah.
But when you dream, though, where do you see any one of those shows? I mean, like when you're like, I think this is possible.
Yeah, probably more travel for all of them. I would say doing the shows on the road. Yeah, just because that's me personally. I like to travel. I like to explore and talk to more people, but I want to be able to do what I'm doing in that aspect. So adding a little bit more of that into the mix for all of them, which could be symbiotic actually if it's done right. They could all benefit from it at the same time. So I think there's some way to figure that out, but I'm not quite sure the path yet, but that's where I think I'd want to take it.
90 minutes of content daily. Is that right? Daily?
Yep. Yeah, that's 90 minutes of Digital Trends Live, 45 to 60 minutes of Funemployment Radio, and then a couple other podcasts thrown in there too with the manual and trends benefits.
Dude, as a guy that creates a lot of content, that's a lot of content.
It's a lot of content. Digital Trends Live is, I think, 6 interviews per show, roughly. Some days there's other people that'll do them. We have a New York studio too, but mostly it's out of our Portland studio. And then 25 minutes of news. So yeah, it's a lot of talking.
Yeah, a lot of talking. And you definitely talk fast. You've already covered like a whole show's worth of conversation in 38 minutes. He's burned.
Sorry, yeah, I'm used to. Yeah, I just realized that I'm probably talking a little fast. Yeah, I'm just used to trying to get in as much content as I can. Probably should slow down a little bit.
It's okay.
Probably should have drank coffee before this.
People are going to listen to it at 2 times speed anyhow, so they'll just have to slow down to 1.5.
There you go.
One of the things I often do with guests is I turn the mic around and let you ask me questions if you're so inclined. Mm-hmm. I'm glad to give you the opportunity to hit the ball back at me if you want.
Yeah. So how'd you get your start in this? What were you doing before?
I came back from Afghanistan, and I wanted to tell stories. And a friend of mine had a small-scale community radio show, and we had magic happen. And like I said before, they kicked us out and said, "Go do bigger things. You guys got to go." Yeah. So that's how we ended up here.
Yeah, and then just took it off from there, and have grown this. And that was what you say 5 years ago.
Yeah, basically 5 years ago we started to break it down.
Yeah,
so yeah.
Wow. And then you've got all of these other things going on. How do you balance all of that time? How do you balance it?
I work a lot, obviously.
Yeah.
And then I've become very aware of, this is one of the traits that I've picked up. I've become very aware of where my limits are, and then when I need to refuel my tank, and I do a good job of managing that. I mean, day to day, it might look like I'm doing nothing or like I'm working like crazy. It doesn't make sense. But in my head, there's a lot of sense in how I structure things. Mm-hmm. So I try to be efficient. I try to be elegant. And then I try to strive for those things when I don't feel like I am either of those things.
Yeah. Do you schedule in time off?
Yeah, I do. I'm not great at it, but yeah, I try to say like this part of the week is just for me to take a nap, to relax, I got to fill the tank, man. I can't I'm good at sleeping, but I have to like fill the well. I've got to read I got to get into the zeitgeist and see what's happening and all of those things. And if I don't do that, then I get overwhelmed and then I go towards depression instead.
Yeah, which makes sense. I think that's a really important thing that a lot of people forget about is managing that time and trying to take some time out for yourself. So that I'm always interested to see how other people handle that and schedule that in. Now, when it comes to guests, you had talked about guests before of all the different ones that you've been able to interview. You were just talking to a best-selling author earlier. Yeah. Who's one that stands out to you that maybe you learned something from that you didn't expect to learn something from?
We had a guy on who was a singer from a band called Tower of Power, and they're a band that have evolved over the last 50 years. So he's been one of the singers. And I thought we were going to get like this guy who's, one of many. And it turned out he was a powerful philosopher for life because he had seen such a rough brand of life in what would be your dream job, lead singer for a band that goes out and makes money, But that wasn't the case. It was something else. And just those environments and how many times philosophy shows up in a show that's not about philosophy. Those are the ones I really treasure, where you just get taken on a completely different ride.
Right. Different kind of journey that you didn't know was going to happen.
Yeah.
Do you have a dream guest like that you would want on of any of them? And you don't have to have one. I'm just curious.
Yeah. For sure. I've got people that I'm like, because I try to gauge the health of the show on the kind of guests I can get. And I don't always chase gigantic people. We've had some enormously famous people on the show. But if I could get Tom Hanks on the show, I think that'd be pretty incredible. Or Ron Howard. Or anyone from U2, that's thinking huge, but I'd like.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, I'd like to get a president on the show, and all of these things are possible. They all write books, they all have projects they have to talk about. You just have to have a little bit of luck with timing and be available when they're available.
Yeah, right place, right time, be in that position. Yeah, to take advantage of it when it happens. Yeah. Where do you see, is there another show, and just kind of turning back some of the questions you asked me, is there another show that you want to start?
Yeah, but where I'm pushing the company right now is developing some scripted drama, maybe some true crime, maybe some military-based stuff, since I'm a military guy and there's a big audience for that. It's one thing to talk to people long form for an hour. It's another thing to take them on a completely unique journey and then take that stuff to, because I live down here in Southern California, take that stuff to market and see if I can't get, more funding to do more projects and get a little more focused on like bigger dream projects. Yeah.
Fuel it with that. That's a great plan. What, outside of any podcasts we're talking about today, we're not talking about like mine, yours, anything. What's a favorite show that you listen to?
I listen to shows primarily to be a mechanic and hear how Joe Rogan operates. I went through a stretch listening to Joe Rogan to see, because he's growing all the time too. So I'm familiar with what he does. And so I'll check in with him every now and then. I was using him as an example to see see if I can figure out why he asks the questions he does, how he frames them, when he lets go, when he takes control, and I sort of get a pace for that. So like when I listen to your show, I'm listening to your style and just honestly trying to see what tools you use, and then if they're germane to my style, how to put them in my bag or how to sharpen them, and that's the main thing I do when I listen. But there's sometimes when I don't have a lot of time to listen to stuff. So usually it's work based. It's not like it's hard work, but that's usually what I do when I listen.
Yeah. That makes sense too. I'm always trying to do that too, is understand how somebody else runs their show or operates or what they do on that end, and see if you can take something. And that's good advice for anybody that's listening too, is try to take what you can. Don't steal anything, but try to take what you can on learning the mechanic side of things. Yeah,
for sure.
Good idea.
That's awesome stuff. Well, listen, I know you're busy, and I don't want to use all your time up because I want to have you come back at some point. But I really just appreciate you hanging out with us and getting everybody some options on other podcasts to listen to. Everybody should go check out Greg on Twitter because he's on there at Greg Nibler, Nibler, and you can check out his Funemployment Radio Digital Trends, and then also don't forget the manual. Each one of these things is easy to find. If you can't find them, P.A. Turner, I will link you to it. Look in the show notes. There'll be links in there. But the reason why I bring other podcasters on is because there are so many great people out there doing wonderful things, and Greg has been doing it for such a long time. He's such a consummate pro, and we can all learn from him and also go on the ride with him because he knows how to do it. Man, Greg, thank you again so much. Appreciate it.
Hey, Pete, thank you so much for having me on. Really, really appreciate that.